Today, we're going to talk about creating your own role. It is not something that is intuitively obvious. So what's the scenario? Let's say you get into an interviewing process. Maybe it's an informational interview. Maybe it's an organization, somebody referred you in, maybe you networked in, maybe your boss hunted, maybe just somebody was willing to talk to you because they thought you had an interesting background. They may not have an open role. They might be receptive to you joining the organization. You need to figure out what's the right role for me, and they might even ask you to create it. The best companies do this. So let's get that out of the way right up front. It is a great sign if an organization is willing to talk to you and is open-minded or amenable to you joining them in some way, but they haven't quite figured it out yet because they want to work with you to figure out, well, where can you add the greatest value? What might you be interested in? Right? We want to hit those intersections of what can you do? What do we need? Where do we find that intersection? Are you interested in doing these kind of things? And can we figure out a way to compensate you appropriately against the right metrics? What's the job description going to look like? That's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to take you through the steps in the way that I think about them, some of the mistakes I think people make along the way, and what I want you to do. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And as a matter of fact, I'm sure you were all here with me for the Tuesday morning video on September 12th when in 2023, when I actually released a video that was very specific to the job interview. It was titled How to Win the Job Interview for a Role That Isn't Defined. So sometimes we find ourselves interviewing and we're not really sure about the role, or the role isn't clear, but they know they want to hire you to do something. This video was about how do you actually conduct the interview, the specific interview, and how I would shape the interviewing process. Today, we're going to talk a bit more about holistically knowing that going in, they're looking for you to create a role, or they're willing to work with you on creating that role. But this is a fantastic precursor to what we're going to be talking about today. So I don't want you to miss out on that. Now, one of the other things that I want to draw your attention to is I want to get your mind in the right place. I want you to be thinking about what are all the variables. For those of you that follow me and that go to the Andy School of interviewing and negotiating and all that good stuff, there are always 5 variables at play. There are always 5 variables at play. Whether you know it, whether the organization knows it, whether the recruiter who's interviewing you or screening you knows it, whether the hiring official knows it. I want to level set everybody to know what those 5 variables are. These are always at play no matter what anybody ever tells you. What's the first thing? The organization has goals. The unit has goals. The position itself has goals. There are always goals. That's inherent. That's not too tough. There are always problems in achieving those goals. Problems is not a bad word. It's just that we have challenges. I need to figure it out. I have a marketing engine. I have marketing problems. How do I get more people to come to my live office hour shows on Thursdays, or watch my videos on Tuesdays, or buy my stuff? Right? That's okay. That's all we do. We have goals. We have things that stand in our way of achieving them. Sometimes those problems are easy to knock over. Sometimes they're very difficult. Sometimes there's many ways to solve them, which leads us to number 3, the solution. So every employer, when they interview you, even if there's a well laid out job description that's umpteen pages long, they have goals, they have problems, and they have a solution in mind. Oftentimes, we think we need to hire somebody to build us a marketing team. We feel like we need to hire somebody to implement that IT project so that they can put in a better Salesforce automation tool so the sales team can better track its prospects and leads and proposals and so on. So there's some solution in mind going in. And they have to have a solution in mind because the level of complexity of the solution, or what they think is going to be done, has a profile of an individual that they think going in, we think the person looks like this. What does we think the person looks like this code for? Job description. We think it's somebody with some marketing experience, who's got 3 years of experience, who knows how to market a widget of some kind, of this kind. So they have a profile, and then they have an idea or an assumption, let's stick with the word assumption, of what it's going to cost them to hire that person, what that person's salary might be, what their bonuses might be, what a person with 3 years of that kind of marketing experience might cost, $50,000, $100,000, whatever it is. These are always at play. They're always at play. And for those of you that follow me, you know, I always tell you, and you have the entire interview process to change all of these. The goals themselves, they can be higher level goals. The problems could be easier to solve. They could be very complicated to solve. The employer might not even know how tricky it is to solve those problems. The solution, you might be able to do it faster. You might be able to do it cheaper. You might be able to do it manually. You might be able to do it in an automated fashion. You might be able to buy an off-the-shelf package. I don't know. That's why I'm hiring you to help me figure that out. Profile. Andy, you don't need somebody with 3 years of marketing experience. You need somebody who's got a year worth of experience who knows how to circulate videos across all the different social media platforms. You don't really need a strategist. You need arms and legs. Okay, maybe the profile changed. Well, I thought that person was going to cost me $80,000. Maybe that person cost me $40,000. Or I thought the person was going to cost me $80,000. Maybe I got to pay $180,000. Who's tracking? You get the entire interviewing process in order to manipulate these. And I don't mean in a negative sense. I mean work them in your favor. Be clear. And if you want a little more on that one, I got a video on YouTube, 5 ways to get paid more salary when interviewing. So if you want to learn a bit more about these things and how they might affect your compensation, but they also affect what we're going to be talking about today, is how do I create a role where I'm taking into account all these things? Does it make sense? Makes sense, right? Pretty straight. Okay, so now that we all have an appreciation for that, let's talk a little bit about the goals. So here's the scenario again. You're talking with someone, and they're open to bringing you in. They're just not entirely sure what that role would look like, but they like your background. They know you can add value. You've been able to show them maybe the kinds of things you've done for other organizations, the skill sets you have. So when you go in, first step, think in terms of goals and outcomes. When it comes to goals and outcomes, you then have to translate goals and outcomes into the how are we going to actually achieve those goals, achieve those outcomes. So there's the what. What do you want to happen, Andy? What is it that you need help with? What are your goals? What most people do, which is totally incorrect, is they want to start talking about their own background and their own skill sets. And why don't we want to do this? Because you might have 10 awesome skills, but I only need one of those because my goals and my outcomes are predicated on you knowing a certain thing, you knowing how to do a certain exercise, create a certain solution type. You want to sell to the gap. I have the gap. The gap is the goal. It's an aspiration I want to achieve or a problem I need to overcome, but there's something that I need you to do for me, meaning me, the employer. I'm not saying that all your skills aren't going to come in handy and you might not discuss them at some point along the way, but that's not where you start. And that's a big mistake that a lot of people make, and especially more senior people, because the more senior you are, generally the more experience you have, or just you've been working longer, you know more things, you've seen more things, you've built more skills, or maybe you've become even more adept at certain things. So just because you could do 5 things doesn't mean I need them all. And then what I want you to do is I want you to think in terms of function, not title. So goals that I have, don't think, oh, well, you need a chief strategist to do that. I don't need anything to do that. I could have people with no names in my company, no title names, that is. It isn't about what I call you. It's about how you're going to satiate my needs to achieve my goals. Do you guys get this? So don't think in terms of, well, I'm a senior marketing person, Andy, and you need help. But it sounds like you need some low-level help, mid-level help, maybe senior-level help. But I want to be called. I don't care. Don't get into that yet. What's going to make you successful is the breakdown that you do throughout the interviewing process that addresses the functions. So one of the examples, I think I might have used this in that previous video I talked about, but I love this example because it's easy to illustrate for you and it'll register easily because of the way probably that you found me. I'm a career coach. And some people might say expert space. Some might call it influencer space. Some might call it trainer. Call me whatever you want. I don't really care. So in order for me to help the people that I want and the mission that I have, I need to be able to circulate my content, my education, my lessons, things like this out to the world. But in order for you to benefit from what we're doing today, the 138 of you that are here, you need to discover it. You need to know that Andy's live Thursdays at 11 a.m. Central Daylight Time in the summer on his YouTube channel. So I need to be able to market myself in some way. I send you emails, but in order for me to send you emails, you need to have discovered me and registered for my newsletter. Maybe you saw me on LinkedIn. Maybe we're connected. Maybe you were just surfing along in YouTube and the algorithm popped up a video of mine in front of you. Maybe you were looking on Instagram and one of my quote cards came up, or TikTok or Twitter or X or whatever it is. So all of that stuff we don't do randomly. We have an organized approach with videos that we circulate in different formats, in different layouts, with different cosmetics that discuss different topics. We do that on an ongoing basis so that I'm ever present. We do that when we're leading up to promotions, when we have events or workshops, or when we have a singular live office hours day. Right now, we're creating a video that's going to be an hour or two long. There's a lesson in it. That lesson gets cut up. That gets circulated on my YouTube channel and in other places. You're going to ask me questions when we're done. Those are all going to get cut up, so on and so forth. And all of this stuff falls under my marketing umbrella. And it's about circulating my content so what? I can raise my brand awareness and discoverability in the market so that more people know me, so that I could help more people, invite them into my community, and some of those people are going to become customers. Now, between the time I start and the time I write this session, these lessons, that we shoot this, it's recorded, it's audioed, it's pictured, it's videoed, it's cut up in different dimensions, and so on. There's, I don't know, somewhere along the lines of 12 different functions. So I need marketing help. And I call this marketing. You might call it social media management. You might call it content writing. You might call it video development. You might be a videographer. You might be an administrator. You might be a project manager. I don't really care what you are. There's a bunch of functions that I have. And if you have any marketing sense or social media sense, because people buy in what's in front of them online, and that's the way we educate the world, most of us small business owners. That's what happens, even the large business owners. So if I invited you and I said, I'm looking for somebody to help me in marketing, you look like you've done things like this before, or you've helped people with their content or their circulation. Do you know the social media scheduling tools? That's another element. That's another activity. It's another function, right? So we have to write the copy. We have to cut the videos. We have to schedule it in a tool, because Kara and I don't sit there and say, okay, it's 7 o'clock in the morning. I need to circulate a quote card. We don't do any of that. We schedule all of that. So all of these are functions that I need satiated, but we don't even start there. We don't even start with the title marketing or media manager. What do we start with? Andy, what do you want to happen? I want to have more people know who I am. That's where we start. Because in doing that, that is a prerequisite step to what? Me satiating my mission, which is to help them with what? Their careers. With what? With their job searches. With what else? With portions of their job searches. With writing their resume and interviewing and negotiating their salary and all that good stuff. So when you come to me, if you find yourself in this position, you want me talking about what do I want to have happen, and to what degree do I want that to have happen. So if I said, well, I would really be happy if you could just get me 10 more leads a day. You say, Andy, you don't need to change anything. We just need to add a few hashtags. Well, the solution that you're going to come up with in that case is going to be a lot more simple if you know what you're doing. So Andy, you want 100 leads. Okay, hang on. We really need to rethink, and you might need to tailor your content to each platform. You can't just cut up your YouTube video anymore. Fine. Andy, I want 500 more leads a day. Andy, you're going to have to start paying for ads because we're going to have to get this stuff in organically because your social media reach is only going to go so far. Okay, well, you need to know how to run the ad. You need to know what copy is best. You need to know what type of video or audio or still media shot or whatever. So do you follow me? So what you're doing is you're trying to elicit information that's helping you understand what functions I need satisfied in order to attain the goals that I want to attain. Don't think in terms of what you're called. Don't get hung up on that. That's just an intrusion and it mucks up your ideas. Don't think about that. This is step one. Who's tracking? I'm tracking in the chat. All right, next thing. What else? Well, Andy, who do you got on the team? What do they know? You want to look for areas where you could fulfill gaps that they have in satiating these functions because Andy doesn't have the team members. And Andy, what are you doing? Are you doing some of that? Yeah. Is Kara doing some of that? Yeah. Could somebody else take everything Andy and Kara's doing and do that? Yeah. How much of it? How long would it take? What are we sacrificing in the way of quality because Andy and Kara are rock stars at this or not? You know what I mean? Or to what level can I improve it? If there's a fall off and somebody's copywriting isn't as good as Andy's copywriting or Kara's copywriting, what are we going to do? Is that fall off going to hurt? But Andy, what would you do with the reallocation of your time? What would that enable you to do by freeing up some of the copywriting that you have to do each week? So you're constantly thinking in terms of gaps as it relates to the team, as it relates to skill sets, as it relates to the quality of the work, or what additional time you're freeing up. Because part of your sales message to me is, Andy, you're telling me you spend 5 hours a week copywriting? That's over 10%. Well, it's not 10% of Andy's hours each week, but it's 10% of a normal person's hours each week. Andy, if you had an extra 10%, where would you spend your time? What would you do? How much of that 5 hours that I'm going to take from you are you going to have to actually channel back in to educating me and what? And helping tutor me and so on until I'm fully up to speed. All right, so you're going to need 1 hour a week, and then you're going to get 4. Do you see what I'm saying here? You're looking at everything holistically because your argument isn't just, I can come in and pick up those responsibilities, Andy. What is the actual outcome that's going to occur as a result of me being on the team? People don't do this. What do I call it oftentimes? A benefit extension. Andy, you're hiring me. You're offloading 5 of your hours and I'm going to do this stuff. But that's not the end of it. Because there's 1 hour you're going to have to spend with me. So really I'm offloading 4. You're still going to have to spend 1, but then you get 4 more hours to be thinking of new ways to build things, improve your customer service, better market you, and better sell. What's that cost? What's that cost in terms of time, but what's that yield in terms of revenue or benefits? So there's all of these things that can be included even if they're intangible. The point is you want to be mindful of them because you're making an argument of not just what you're going to do, but how the team is going to change and how your ability to achieve your goals is going to change. You see what I'm saying? So you're looking for gaps in the impact that the gaps are going to have. All right, then what? I wrote this out. I know this sounds obvious, but I literally want you to think of it this way. Can we have a working session to get together in a room with the white walls and the whiteboards and the flip charts and the computers and the whatever we need to kind of talk this through? I want you to start thinking of your interviews or your interviews, and anytime you're talking to anybody at the organization, it's an actual interview. But consider it a working session. This does a couple things. This will be great because it'll give us a chance, Andy, to see what it's like to work together, how we work as a team, how we figure things out, You can help educate me on. We can figure out what kind of process we're going to go through. But I literally want you to start thinking of some of these as working sessions and even request them. So as you're going through your interviewing process, if the organization and the hiring official are wholly interested in getting you to join the team, this will be music to their ears. Let's get together. Let's pound it out. So I want you to approach it that way. And this will give us a great chance to see how we work together. And if nothing comes of it, Andy, at least you're going to have a good idea and more insight into how you can look at your marketing engine or whatever it might be. Okay, next thing. This is your deliverable here. I don't care what format you put this in. You are looking to create a document, a grid, a spreadsheet, a table, or whatever. If you're in the job search coaching program, we give you this stuff, but there's goals. All right, Andy, you told me you want to do this. You want to increase your brand awareness. That's great. The value that's going to contribute is if you're able to increase your brand awareness, right, it's going to be easier to sell. You're going to sell more. You're going to help more people. There's a whole host of these things. That's what the value is. Is it a top priority? It's always a top priority. It's the number 1B priority. 1A priority is make sure the customers are happy, right? So after you get a customer, you want to keep the customer and keep the customer happy because that makes everything else easier. All right, well, what are the metrics? How are we going to define what it is that you want? Because the metrics that we're going to use and the degree to which we're going to achieve them, the goal or the outcome, is going to drive the solutions. So what metrics are we going to use in order to know if I'm doing a great job and I'm contributing the value you want? So as an example, and you're going to love next week's session, by the way, for those of you that are here with me live, well, Andy, what metrics would you use? I'll tell you what metrics we're not going to solely rely on is the number of subscribers on my YouTube channel. There's no relationship between the number of subscribers on my YouTube channel and how much revenue we generate. There isn't. Trust me. I've been doing this a long time. There's no relationship between the number of Facebook followers or Instagram followers or TikTok followers or X followers or Threads followers that translates into money. It isn't. It just isn't that way because they're just not as engaged as people that subscribe to the newsletter. They're not as engaged as people who are reading the emails, who are coming to the Thursday show, and those kinds of things. So we're going to use certain metrics. We're going to use metrics such as increased number of what? Yeah, followers is an indicator. Email subscribers, customers, lifetime value of a customer, average purchase of a customer, and so on. Other things that tell me that the marketing engine is actually doing its job, because marketing is not raising my follower count. That doesn't do anything. That's an SEO skill set. I have to sell, I have to teach, I have to do all these other things that take somebody whose awareness we've gained and turn them into a paying customer is totally different. Has nothing to do with the quality of the teaching and everything to do with luck of the algorithm. So there are certain metrics we're going to look at, certain metrics I don't care about, and so on. Then, all right, what responsibilities or activities will I need to perform in order to achieve these goals, provide this value, and what sequence do you want me to do them in? Because if the sequence and the front loading of activities is based on a skill I don't have, we need to take that into account because you're going to need to get up to speed. That's also going to affect my time in terms of coaching. So you want to look at things holistically. When you join a team, there's a ripple effect. What do I say? Right? It's not in the shout, it's in the echo. There's always a ripple. So you want to start identifying these things before you do what? Before you turn this card upside down, before you draft the job description that then is aligned to those key factors that I just mentioned, the goals, the value, the priorities, and so on. Then out pops a job description. And then what comes last? A title. Guys, see how this works? So let's just recap that. So very quickly, this is a nice prerequisite. How to win the job interview for a role that isn't defined. You want to make sure that you're understanding What's at play? There's goals, problems, solution, the degree to which something can be solved, the time frame in which it can be solved, the expense in which it can be solved. Then that's a system structure process expense. Then there's a profile of individual. Then there's a salary, bonus, and compensation cost of the individual or individuals, or if it's a team, that it's going to take to solve it. You can learn more about that. 5 ways to get paid more salary when you're interviewing. Think goals and outcomes first. Think function first. And by the way, as an aside, those of you who are hiring, most teams that are built are not built properly because they built based on bodies. That's not a good way to staff a team. It's by function. So those of you that are in a hiring capacity should think function satiation first. Who that person looks like or what the body looks like second. Because it could be 2 people. It could be 1 person. It could be 1 Uber person. It could be 3 people. All right, what are the gaps and what are the ripples? Make sure you're having your working sessions. Make sure you go after the key factors first. So as your transition into the job description is the goals, the value, the priorities, the metrics, and the responsibilities and activities it's going to take. Then you create the job description. What it looks like, what you're going to do, what you're going to accomplish, how you're going to be measured, some of the skill sets that you bring to the table and all that good stuff if that's necessary at that point. And there you have it. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please make sure you subscribe to the channel because you know it hurts me when you miss my weekly shows and my weekly recorded videos on Tuesdays and Thursdays. If you enjoyed this, click the like button on YouTube. Please share it. People need help. If you're here with me live, we're going to the chat. If you are watching this on the recording, I'll see you next week.